All right. Hello, Omolara. State your name and your pronouns and how you self-identify.
Oh, okay. My name is Omolara. I don't know, man. I don't really have pronouns or whatever. Whatever, honestly.
That's valid.
I do find myself gravitating towards more like they, them. It makes more sense, but
it is what it is.
Yeah.
When did you start? I don't know. When did you start feeling comfortable enough to express yourself?
Never. I don't know. Let's say, I don't know. It doesn't even. Before, I would think a lot about my appearance. As it related to other people. So now when I think about my appearance, I just do stuff because I want to do it, not because I'm trying to do something for somebody else. I cut my hair because I want to cut my hair. I get a piercing because I want to get that piercing, and I just do it out of just in that moment. That's what I want to do. So my appearance has changed often. It's still changing, based on growth. But yeah, I've never been comfortable with it though, because with change, I often don't see it coming until it happens, and so I have to readjust my perspective of who I am. So being uncomfortable allows me to eventually grow comfortable with what I do, because when I first, had that decision, it was just purely self. So, you do things that you're comfortable with, you do things that you're uncomfortable with, but you do it in the end because it's something that you want to do. So that's why I say I haven't really been comfortable. But now I feel comfortable. Now I'm way more comfortable with my hair and the fact that it's cut. Way more comfortable in my appearance because I feel like it's most authentic to me right now. So yeah.
What do you think causes your uncomfortability in the first place?
Well, of course, it's definitely just around these societal norms. You did ask who would I identify as, and I guess I would definitely say I was definitely a non-straight, the furthest. But I would say, I just say queer kind of just encapsulate, queer, dyke kind of terminology is something that I find myself more comfortable with.
Do you like the term dyke?
I found it in the beginning. I was very I don't know, I was very neutral with it. I had no real true opinion on it. It's because I didn't really grow up around an environment where I heard the word often. So, I mean, I heard it, but I didn't really have any negative feelings towards it. Of course, with time and finding that I started to hear it used in such a negative way, I was just that's stupid, that's just wrong. But then I've been finding some of my friends say it, and I'm be that's hot, you know what I mean? So I do find it kind of seeing taking the power of the word. I find it, I'm that's hot, you know what I mean?
It.
So, but I don't whatever. Anyways.
No, that's valid.
Yeah, but when it comes to labels and stuff, I honestly, truly remove myself to be the furthest away from them because it just makes shit confusing, especially because we're all ever evolving. Because I may say this now, but 20 years later, I can completely disagree with myself. And I've been finding the comfort in knowing that I can change my mind at any time. So that's why I just don't even really try to get wrapped up in those labels and stuff. I just be like, look, this is what's up, you know, this is what I do, like, and honestly, it's no one's business but my own.
Yeah. Have you found pushback in you trying to be authentic?
Yeah.
How do you deal with it?
It's just like this social media, man. It's just so much of it, and it's very easy to get wrapped up in it. Because I see a lot of people who are out here freely like identifying themselves and utilizing these labels that give you this clear idea of like who this person is. Not saying that these labels define the decisions they make, but they found these terms that they can closely relate to. And I think that's what I'm just trying to do, is find like what I can relate to. But often I just honestly think that I relate to nothing. I just sit in this like space and I just float around all these different labels. So what I self-identify as, I honestly just a floater. So that's...
Is that floating free?
I honestly truly love floating. I love floating. I love it so much. And everything I said before, I take it all back. Because now this has made the most sense to me right now, and I've just discovered this as we speak. But I just find myself just being a floater. So I just identify as a floater. I float amongst the spectrum because it's all a spectrum, and I just can never bound myself to one part of a spectrum because I'm just ever evolving and always moving. So I just can't bound myself to a label, which is just hard. But I can tell you that I do find women attractive. And I love the Black woman. I just love the woman's essence and body and everything about a woman. And that type of attraction.
So, you are Nigerian.
Yeah.
How has your background, you know, and the whole pressure of womanhood played into, you know, life and experiences?
My relationship to Nigeria and then being a Nigerian person. I love being Nigerian.
Yes.
It's just something, and I feel so connected to just like my past, and knowing that I do have like ancestors like right behind me. Like I'm just like, I know for a fact that they have roots that just dig deep into the soil. But still, my relationship to being Nigerian has been quite the journey. Especially because my full name is Yoruba, like beginning, middle to end, and just trying to figure out my personal relationship and not like having a lot of like outside thoughts about like what my relationship should look like. You know what I mean? Because I can't deny what runs through my blood. But it's so funny because I often think about traveling back to visit family because, you know, my sister did it and, you know, my dad's been out there. But I go back and I'm just like, man.
Summer Bank.
Yes. I'll try to find a way to edit. Easy for you to edit my word back in. But, yes. I often do in a trip like visit back, but I just know I'll be giving them like a run for their money. Especially I'll be going out, they be like, "Wait, you're Nigerian?" And I'm like, "Yes, I know my complexion is of a lighter tone. I am a lighter tone Nigerian, but
you are still Nigerian."
Yeah, and then they get so surprised when I can like, you know, like withhold a conversation, and I'm just like, well, I also come here with this face piercing, my head shaved, this very like sharp feature jawline, kind of like very like what people would say as like a more of a masculine energy. But I think it's what I would just say. It's just I just move with a more forward direction because I have to make sure I'm on my shit at all times. even when I look a hot ass mess. So that's why I always try to move with more confidence, because I used to not move with confidence at all. And so I kind of want to be like, yeah, I know I'm coming in here looking like this completely different type of person, and like, especially like in like the Black community, just looking like, you know, the alt bitches really be having it out here, like the gays really be going through it. So I just be like, I have to make sure I walk into the room with confidence, because I don't want, if I can't even fake it to make it, all the outside stares are going to start to consume me. So I can easily get consumed by other people's opinions. And so that's why I find myself, you know, having like this weird relationship between like being like Nigerian, and then like something that I always find so confusing. It's when like Nigerians like find themselves really wrapped up in like the Christian religion. I just be like, bro, what? But that's a whole different story. So yeah, and I know they really do have it hard out there. The community is like, it's like tough out there. But I just wish I saw way more representation of it. Cause I was like, gay Nigerians? There ain't none of them out here. But like, all the Nigerians I know that are my friends
Are gay.
So it's just like, they out here, it's just a representation, especially on screen, it's very scarce. And it's never like, well, from what I've seen, especially just like in like, you know, big media and stuff, it's always like I want to see like a Nigerian born, raised in Nigeria, and their like gayness being on screen versus like, and it's not knocking anybody, but like if I saw, it's like way more digestible if it's like a Nigerian first gen English person, you know what I mean? Like every time it's like a British film, it's like, or like a film, they're always like British, and I'm just like, they're never like
born.
And I think that's just like something I think about too. But yeah, man, I just sometimes, you know, be feeling like an outsider, so I rather feel like authentic on the inside as much. So that's why I feel like it's imperative to be comfortable with who you are, because the outside world, as much as you want, sometimes will never understand you. And that just goes for a lot of people, especially when we get wrapped up in labels. The more we get wrapped up in them, they just make it harder for like true self-expression, because you always have to find yourself being put into this box, or being put into this like this new checkbox you can check on forms. And I think it's definitely great to have more diversity when it comes to like, you know, forms and stuff like that. But if we could just rid of it altogether, I feel like that would just be so much more beneficial.
I mean, it's because I feel like we have two identities to choose from when it comes to gender identity. It's either male or female. And so how do you define that, I guess? So ask, how do you define what is masculine energy and feminine energy?
Child, all that shit, man. Like, as much as you can try to find a creative way to describe going against this binary of male and female, it's hard to truly deter away from like the male and female binary when we have to compare whatever is not a male or female to being a male or female. You know what I mean? So it's just like, that's why I also find like, you know, it's harder to find who you are, because you can say, I just don't relate at all to this structure of gender. And the spectrum of which there is an end that is one way and another end the other way. And I often think that that's what, like, Ooh, it's kind of cold.
It's kind of cold.
Like if we made spectrum more so like a circle that was just like feeds into each other and like, you know, stretches, and as like more things start to grow on the spectrum, gets wider and wider and wider, but never is there going to be like an end or a beginning, because it's like
infinity.
It's infinity. It's just like an infinite amount of, you know, options. And if we try to define how to be like non-binary, utilizing these binary ideals still, I find myself still trying to find myself to relate or, you know, fit in to this idea of gender. And it's just like, of course we've all been like, yes, like we know that bodies have been made differently, you know. And I think the problem is we're limiting the human body into the fact that we've already had it all figured out. Like, we're like outliving one person's hypothesis on what the human body was. We're still living this same idea of what the human body is, and finding that it's not working anymore because we're finding more people not relating to this idea of what the human body is. So that's why we have more labels and terms so that we can define what the human body is for people and for yourself. And even with that, I still don't even know how to define what my human body is, which is completely different than my spirit. It's completely different than my spirit. So it's just like, because once I'm done and I leave this human body, the essence of my spirit will live on. So it's like, I'm bound to no body. I'm bound to no terms. There's nothing that can define what my human body is, because my essence is more than a human body. It doesn't.
I think that's beautiful. I think that's lovely.
So that's my thought on gender.